What's going on, everyone, and welcome to my review of the Pet Sematary remake that came out in 2019. Aside from the marketing, which I think is absolutely horrible, I actually think that this movie is pretty damn good. So let's get into it. So this movie was directed by two guys. Let me try and pronounce their names for you. Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. I think that's how you say it. And it stars Jason Clarke, Amy Seimetz, John Lithgow, and Jette Lawrence, or Jet Lawrence. I don't know how to say it. Jet? I don't know. Anyway, those are the main four stars of the film. And just like the 1989 original, it follows a family, the Creed family, who move into a house in remote Ludlow Lane and discover a pet cemetery out behind their house, which has links to ancient Indian burial ground powers. So, I think the thing I like most about this movie is actually the performances, which is where this movie significantly jumps over the original for me, because I don't think there was any good performances aside from Fred Gwynne in that movie. But in this movie, you have Jason Clarke playing Lewis Creed. I think he does a really good job. I know some people say he seems to be sleepwalking through the role, but honest to God, I think he works perfectly. Kind of the way Mel Gibson did in Signs. He's very quiet and not putting on a big theatrical performance, but I think for the context of the story and the situations that his character is put in, I think it makes a lot of sense. I also really like Amy Seimetz as Rachel Creed, who is definitely an improvement over the original. Again, she's absolutely so much better than what she was in the first movie. John Lithgow is great, as he always is. I love his take on Judd Crandall, a bit more of a hard man, but he's got that same warm kind of vibe like Fred Gwynne does. He really seems like that appealing neighbor that you'd move in next door to, who's a really good bloke to chat to, and I really like the way he behaves in this movie. I think there are some certain scenes which I won't talk about when, just for example, he's out by a fire, just to give you a bit more of like a clearer picture as to what I'm talking about. Well, I think he does extremely well. And last but certainly not least, I think my favourite performance of this film is Jette Lawrence. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. But she is fucking brilliant in this film. I really love the atmosphere of this movie, more so than the original. I'm not sure why, but when I read the book, this is more what I had in mind. Just this kind of house surrounded by all the trees and stuff like that, rather than one in the big open plain field. I think that it's got a perfectly spooky vibe. I really like the look of the movie, actually. It's got a very kind of dull colour to it, but it's never boring to look at. I think the house is really nice to look at. I think some of the locations are great. There's some really nice, almost gothic atmosphere with a lot of the fog in the nighttime scenes and stuff like that I really enjoy. And it's just a really nice, cozy, but disquieting location. Also, I think that this movie delivers really well on the scare factor and the creep factor. There's a lot of scenes which are uncomfortable to watch. It's got a lot of tension throughout. There's some really tense scenes, there's some really gnarly scenes, and I think that most of the attempts to scare work. Note that I said most, because I want to talk about some really shitty attempts a bit later on, but I think where this film's supposed to be scary, it works. The film's also complemented by a soundtrack, which isn't the kind of thing you're going to pop in your playlist and listen to, but I think it's really, really solid. I think it works perfectly for the film. I think it's very creepy, very ominous, very suspenseful, and there are some just parts where it just gets your heart pounding. Also, for fans of carnage candy, such as myself, this movie absolutely delivers. There are some really gross sequences in here. Not all of them go as far as they could, but a lot of them go well far enough. And there are just parts of this film that are just gross. Also, without talking any spoilers, I think that this movie does a great job at adapting the novel. I don't think it's brilliant, but I think for the location, for the casting, I think that's all done really well. But one of my favourite parts of this movie is the fact that it's not scared to stray off the path of the book. This movie takes some giant swings, which are kind of jaw-dropping when you first watch them, if you haven't watched the trailer. And I commend that so well. I know some people don't like the changes, but I think you've already got a movie in 1989, a pretty faithful adaptation, if a bit of a shonky one. This one takes the same setup and goes in its own direction with it. I'm not saying it changes literally everything, but it does enough to differentiate itself. It does enough to take a few swings and things that people might not enjoy. And I think that the word adaptation is sometimes misinterpreted. I think some people think of it, oh, it's an adaptation, so it means it's literally the story from the book put onto a film. No, it's based on the novel. It's not the novel put on screen. And I love it when movies change things from the book. Sometimes it doesn't work, but in this case, I think it really works, and it just serves more purpose for the movie to get weird and scary and display acting chops, and I really love it does that. Now, this movie isn't perfect by any means. It's not necessarily a great movie, and while there are a lot of things that I love about it, there are a lot of things that bug me about it. I do think that the third act of this movie is ridiculously rushed. It's quite ridiculous. Like, it just jumps and jumps and jumps. And although some of the scenes in it are done well, it doesn't let the audience breathe at all. It's just kind of like, okay, this is happening now. Next scene, okay, this is happening now. Next scene, okay, this is happening now. Next scene. Oh, it's done. Okay, that happened quickly. Didn't really give you any time to digest it, or doesn't give you time to let the real horror sink in. The horror of this story does not sink in. And that's where I think the original film surpasses this remake. I'm not saying this third act isn't bonkers, and I'm not saying it has an ending which is unsatisfying by any means on a story department, but from a pacing point of view, it is underwhelming because everything just happens and then the movie's over. I think this is like a, hour and 40-minute movie. I think they could have stretched it out for 20 minutes at least to 2 hours, at least. Also, there is just some really weird choices with some of the scares in this movie. This isn't spoilers at all, but when you have at least 3 scares in this movie from semi-trucks going past, it's like, why? Why is this happening? It's just ridiculous. So, overall, is this film even nearly as good as the book? No. Is it a decent adaptation of the book? I think so. And as a horror movie, as the kind of thing you want to watch something on a Saturday night, you don't want it to be too long, you just want it to have some good acting, some nice atmosphere, and some good scares minus the fucking semi-truck shit. Is this a good movie? Yeah, I think so. I've watched this one many times actually, and I really enjoy it each time I watch it. I'm going to give Pet Sematary 3.5 stars. Thanks so much for watching my review on the 2019 remake / new adaptation on Stephen King's classic book. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think of it. I'll see you all next time. Bye.